Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's October 25th, 2023. I have 4:03 p.m. This is the Finance Committee. This meeting will be video recorded and broadcast over local access channel 8 and through the town website at www.eastham-ma.gov. And onto the agenda. The first item on the agenda is, excuse me, the minutes of September 27th, 2023. And thank you, Mira, for doing the minutes for us. Do I have any comments, questions, motion to approve, etc.?
They looked fine to me, so I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of September 27th.
I'll second.
Joanna, and you're Tom. Any discussion? All in favor? And you were not here, so 1, 2, Steve, 3, 4, 5, 5-0. Peter here, but not able to vote. Okay. On to item number 3 of the agenda. And I want to thank Paul for doing this for us. And are there any comments, questions, additions, deletions, what have you? Joanna?
I thought it was great. I have only two places I would do at the start when you say provided that one of our missions is, or what we've done is provide a cost benefit analysis. I come from CDC. We don't actually do a true cost benefit analysis. So I would just change it to that we provide information on costs and benefits on those articles. And then on page 2, a similar, just where it says analysis done, we give input on that. We don't.
And where was that second one, Joanna?
I didn't print out
Oh,
the thing. It's
oh.
on the second one.
First line. Top of the page, right?
In addition, I guess it's page 2. In addition, FinCom provides input and advice on various finance, accounting, and operational matters as opposed to analysis, because I just think of cost benefit analysis as a specific, economic study with input and stuff. So I don't think we've done that yet, but I think it's a nice, concise report.
So I had one question. I mentioned it to Paul.
We were trading notes over the weekend.
Yeah. Go ahead.
The question I had was, this looks like it's something that could be in any year's report. You know what I mean? And I'm just wondering, if you took 2023 out of it, you could say the same thing, 22, 21, 20, right? So my question is what is it that we're asked to provide? Should we provide something that says who we are and what we do? Or should we comment on a couple of the major items that we talked about during the budgeting process in 23? And I'm asking the question. I don't know what it is the expectation, because otherwise Paul could write this, which is fine. And we could use this every year, you know what I mean? We shouldn't have to revamp it, and that's fine too.
Idea to have a template ready just in
Guys,
case.
this is it.
I gave
I worked off of Mary's and
From
went
what
back
I-
and looked at it
Right.
and looked at a couple.
So I guess the answer through you, Manager, the answer to the question is everybody does it differently. Like some departments will just do basically that, or some committees just basically do that, and others really summarize what they do. And it's up to you guys. Like I mean, the select board used to just do something like that. Now they really go through what their goals are, what they think they've achieved. It's like a 3-page thing now.
Okay.
So it's totally up to you. If
Okay.
you see something that you really want to highlight in a particular year, I would,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just thinking,
Go ahead.
sorry,
No, go ahead.
with the Board of Health, similar template, and what's different? And a lot of things do change. I mean, the numbers
Yes.
change. They, so but
There's
we
a lot
highlight,
of
like COVID was a
data
really
in
big
that one.
highlight, and it was,
Mhm.
but, and so I had the same kind of wondering about this, since this is my first, beginning the second year on it. The similar, is there something that jumped out that was different?
Right.
from
The other
previous
thing to
years.
remember is that we do put together a report that's in the town warrant.
Right, and that's what we were talking about.
Yeah.
With that,
And
maybe one way to do it, a link, or is that not done?
Well, I was gonna say that
You
a lot
can
of
do that,
what you
sure,
do, like your recommendations and your report.
Or in the
are
warrant.
annual report
Yep.
Right.
As well.
That is there.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
And I
Yeah.
think if that's there, then I think that's good. And this, this is my own opinion now, that
Right, yeah.
that this is probably fine if the rest of that's in. There's no sense to duplicate, because one of the things I mentioned to Paul was maybe, not to duplicate what we put in the warrant, but maybe you pick out the big one or two items, like you said, and
Yeah.
put that in here. But if
Right.
that's all in there, then I think
Yep.
that's
The
sufficient.
whole warrant. the
Most
whole-
people look at this and they go right to the.
Oh,
right to
warrants
the
in
number.
there, the town meeting
Yeah.
votes are in there. It just goes
Yeah.
through a sequence.
Okay, that's good to know.
You could,
Put a sentence that said,
Reference,
yep,
you know,
yep,
your-
yep, yep.
You contemplated the FY 24 budget, and just a recommendation for.
And then point
Right.
to the
Right.
section.
Sometimes I see is if there's a initiative or overriding concern that you have for the future, that maybe you could reference it in here
Mhm.
type of thing. That you're
Yeah.
working on X, Y, Z.
Right.
So
Yep.
maybe that's something we could think about next year when we're going through it. If we
Right.
get through the cycle, there are one or two items that we want
Yeah.
to pull out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this year I'll just refer to the warrant. And the other thing, I screwed up titles and I apologize. So if you look, I used last year's titles and I shouldn't have. So I will change those.
So I have a couple of comments myself. In the first sentence, we're pleased to submit the 2023. I would put in capitals, annual report. You just have
Oh, annual report
2023.
and report. Okay,
I would put in capitals, annual report.
okay.
And the other thing that I would like, and I'm not sure how other people feel, is instead of saying FinCom, I would say, I would write out Finance Committee each time.
Each time?
That's my opinion. It makes it more formal to me,
Okay.
calling it a Finance Committee, but
I'll do what everybody wants. So I like that. Okay.
and I have another comment on down, let me see, after, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the sixth paragraph, Paul, what starts a secondary role.
Mhm.
I would add, and we were just talking about this a little bit, I would add something like this process, because this is talking about the Capital Projects Committee.
Mhm.
This process will change now that the revised town charter has been approved. Because we're, in that paragraph, we're talking about what the
Representative to
the
each.
Capital Projects Committee does, each individual, each representative, and that is going to change.
So this process will change now that.
Now that the revised town charter has been approved, you don't have to use my exact words,
Sounds good to me.
something similar to that.
New charter.
I think. If I had anything else. Oh, on the back where you have everybody's names
Mhm.
respectfully submitted, I would move your name up. To under Peter,
Well, actually it'd be under Tom now, but yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, Tom would be up there.
Yep.
As, yeah, the clerk. Any other comments? Et cetera, et cetera. We're all okay. Are people, do people want to have Paul do it and then
I can send it.
send it out?
Yeah, I'll send it out to, I'll revise it. What I'll do is I'll revise it, I'll redline it, so you know,
Oh, okay.
and then,
See the changes?
yep. And then tell me, and once everybody's happy, I'll send it on to Mary.
When's it due?
This,
No, we need to vote on this.
okay. I move that we're happy with, no, with Paul making those changes we've discussed and not
As
needing to
amended?
review, as amended.
As amended.
As amended.
Okay,
So that's Joanna is number one, so to speak,
I'll second.
and Tom is going to second.
good.
All in favor?
Right.
1,
Aye.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6, 0.
Having worked on other reports, this seems like if we get this in, we'll be first, Jackie.
Mhm, absolutely. She hasn't even sent out the thing yet.
I know.
I-
This is,
Mary
Good
Mary
job.
sent me a note saying, can you do it? And I said, sure.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll send it back.
Yes.
No, I've done the one for the Community Preservation Committee, and that'll be on the agenda for our next meeting for that, so.
Yep.
So I want to thank, I'll be second. So anyway, Paul's first. So thank you very much, Paul.
No problem.
So let's move that along. So on to agenda number 3, review fiscal year 23 report. Sorry, what am I talking about? Number 4, financial policies update. Okay.
We included current financial policies in your packet. And we just like to have this on this month's agenda because it sets the stage for your considerations with the budget presentations. Next month, I think, is the capital budget. Or maybe that's December, but upcoming will be the capital budget, then we have the operating budget. And we'll follow these policies in the preparation of those, so. Just want to get these on the table and get them, refresh everybody's memory, or if you're new to it, put them in front of you to understand them.
These were updated last year, weren't they? For some reason, I thought I remembered.
We didn't make any changes, but
No.
we do talk about it every year. And I don't have any changes at the moment for this year. Other than to say, I think at this point, we're in a good position to formalize. I'd like to get a cash management and investment policy. Don't have a lot of investments, but we do have some trust funds, and particularly with the library trustees. So you want to get that in place, and and then the trustees can decide what they'd like to do with it. But on our end, we are seeing a lot more opportunity than we've had in a number of years on interest rates with deposits. So I want to, work with our treasurer, who's relatively new to us on a cash management policy. Just to ensure that the key there is just to ensure we're maintaining a appropriate level of insurance or collateralization on our deposits. Hasn't been a problem in many years, but every once in a while there are bank failures, and we want to make sure that we're getting good return, but also making sure we're covered as well. Last time anything like that happened around here, I think was 1995 or something like that. Town of Yarmouth lost $1 million. I think it was Bay Bank or something like that went under. But so anyway, that'll be something I'll bring for your review and consideration at some point over the next year, prior to next year at this time. But as far as the policies we have in place, policy number 3 is a budget policy. And I just call your attention to that. I think this is pretty self-evident. We do this stuff. Most people do these things. But a couple of key points is that we will have a balanced budget, and that operating budgets will be funded with operating revenues that are all recurring. That's kind of the key thing on that. And first of all, and this is usually in our budget instructions, we haven't really had formal instructions from the select board, although we will. But what we've moved forward with for this budget cycle is basically a level services budget. It's kind of how we start. So don't be adding anything to the operating budget. Not that you may not want to or may not need it, but let's get the costs for the services as they have existed in this fiscal year. And then if you need something further, we'll kind of get that separate and evaluate that separate and add it in at the end after we've had some discussion on it. But that kind of goes to, some of the policies as far as protecting our core services and things like that. This policy also talks about the town charter and the requirements in the charter regarding timing and the capital improvement plan. So of course, that's all part of the process, so nothing's changed there. And number 9 under policy 3 is select board specific priorities. These haven't changed as of yet, but we do continue with the $400,000 override from a few years ago going towards capital.
Yep.
We do continue identifying and separately providing for the $490,500 for the family support package. We are stewarding the short-term rentals and the increase as indicated in their budget policies. And, something new could come up, but at the moment, that's where we are with that. Maybe as we get a little bit further into the budget season, there might be something else that comes up from the select board that then we can incorporate. Policy 4 is our revenue policy. And the key here is trying to diversify our revenue sources, which is a challenge for us. We don't have a lot of opportunities. But we are going through, I think we have an opportunity this year. And I think you'll be hearing from Jackie and I some fee proposals, some fee increase proposals. We're considering some right now. I not to speak for Jackie, but I think probably the biggest one would be on the water enterprise fund. Water rates has never had a fee
Never.
increase. And we need to start providing for capital funds to maintain the system. And so I wouldn't call it a full rate study. I don't know that we really need a full rate study, which, costs.
I was
Yeah,
gonna
but-
say, who would do that?
Well, luckily, I know how to do that stuff. If you hire outside and get a full rate study, it costs upwards of $100,000 nowadays. So we don't need a full rate study, but I have gotten all the water data and, know the tiers of usage, because most water rates are based on a tiered system. And I do have, it's pretty much done. I'm just waiting for some feedback. So that'll be something that we'll be rolling out. In the next couple of months, is to start some discussion. But basically I pegged it to, and this is what I got to get some feedback on, and we have to hear from our engineer, our water operators, I should say, as what they foresee in the near term as far as an appropriate level of budget. But at the moment, I've targeted trying to raise about $600,000 for an annual operating budget and about $200,000 for a capital funding annual. So that means we got to have a rate structure overall that provides for $800,000. And so I have some suggested modifications to the tiers that we have and the rates associated with each tier.
How well are the rates covering it now?
Hmm?
How well are the current rates covering
The cost?
costs or?
Yeah, well, we have a,
So maybe it's not planned.
no, we are generating some surpluses.
Okay, it's
Um,
going capital budget.
No, right now,
Stays.
matter of fact, I have the amount here. Our enterprise fund retained earnings is about $633,000.
Okay,
That's cumulative, Over all time.
years, Yeah.
which isn't, intentional to build that up because we do need a degree in an enterprise fund in order to at least say 25% for working capital. So that's more than our budget is for a year.
Mhm.
So some of that can go towards capital in the future.
okay,
We probably need about 150 for working capital, as a operating working
Yep.
capital.
Yep.
Then an amount set aside for reserves. So we do have some that's been accumulated. But the current rates aren't projected to cover the new. We need a new operations contract, which is going to increase the budget, and we need to start setting aside a little bit more for tank painting. It becomes a pretty routine occurrence, and
Believe
like
it or not, that's only like 4 years away.
everything,
Really?
the cost of all these things just goes way up.
It's like 12 to 15 years.
Usually, I think they recommend every 10 years. Most places might not do it that often, but
So what about the, discussion about putting it all on the ratepayers? Like I don't have. I'm
You
not
mean the water
The water ratepayers as opposed to people that aren't hooked up.
well, that's how we move forward.
Yeah.
So, I anticipate that's probably part of the discussion, right? But the 800,000, covers annual capital maintenance cost.
Mhm.
And that's coming from ratepayers. So
And
at
it is
this
a
point,
It is an enterprise fund. I mean, it's
Right.
supposed to have all its costs
And
coming
what-
out of it.
but that's really.
but
what-
the
set up.
interesting thing that just let me close out my thought. So, I thought of that, Peter, but the other thing that occurs to me in doing this exercise is, you've got a number of ratepayers that have hooked up and they're paying for it. And so maybe someone's contemplation will be, I don't need to hook up yet, so I'm not going to hook up yet. But now that we're raising rates to cover a capital maintenance piece, right? Is it equitable or fair for someone to avoid hooking up for, say, 5 years,
To charge them
then
something.
pick up then connect 5 years from now, but have avoided 5 years of,
Mm.
the operating is the operating, but you avoid the capital surcharge.
Yeah, yeah.
So the other piece of this is once we can arrive at a rate, and there might be a separate discussion, but maybe we have a,
Hookup fee.
you know, if
Yeah.
you've had this available to you for a year or 18 months and you haven't connected anything after that, you have a system development charge to connect. So that recovers the 5 years of
that you-
avoidance
that
of
you
capital
that
that you.
weren't.
Because right now we don't have any connection fee or anything.
Rich, what is the percentage of people available that could hook up that have not hooked up at this point?
I
About,
didn't- I
about
didn't-
half.
Half, 50%? Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of encouraging the other 50% to hook up then going forward.
And, you know, it very well could be. And that's the other piece that we would have to consider, should consider. I mean, the rates are what, the usage and the rates are what they are. We got to deal with what we've got to generate the 800,000, if that's the right number. The second piece is maybe the volume, obviously, if you had the other 50% hooked up, there would be so much more that maybe that would drive the rate down.
Right.
And so we really ought to, contemplate, the rate, my perspective anyway, kind of needs to be what it needs to be at this point in time with the participation we have. But part and parcel is now how do we get the other people connected?
It might be a thing to think about too, is that if there are people sitting on the fence, if you decide not to have a connection charge now, you may want to make it public that you're looking at a connection charge in the future.
Right.
And that may force some people to jump in earlier. I don't know that you're ever, what do you estimate to be the percentage of residents that will connect? Because some people won't connect, right?
Ever.
They like,
or
some
until
people
they-
like their well water.
Or until their well really fails,
Yeah.
which could be a long time.
That's fair.
so.
But even 50%, I'm kind of surprised you're at 50% and we're at 50%.
I know, right? It's 40 something,
How
but
many years is that over?
it's 8.
Eight
But,
years?
well, the first year we were building, so. we
Right, but
didn't-
7 years, 7 years, you got half the town. That's pretty
not
good.
bad,
But
it
do you
really-
expect that you'll get to 75 or?
No, and it also includes unbuilt lots. So we have put curb stops at every parcel, right? So there's some parcels
That
that
obviously
are
aren't hooking
never-
up.
Including
maybe you're never
conservation
gonna get-
parcels.
developed.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was
Mhm.
just,
But that was part of the
Right,
agreement, so
right.
we had to do it. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
I was just wondering,
so,
I'd be interested.
I mean, I think we're happy about where we are because we can now support the system
Yep.
and, that's good. And we'll be able to put the new tank up, and the new tank will also, you have to have a certain, amount of users to
Right.
have
Mhm.
a second tank. So the
So in
system is
fact,
operational. and
it's
good.
more than 50% if if the denominator includes unbuildable,
that can't hook
unbuildable
up.
lots. It's actually,
Might
of
be.
if you take those out of the denominator,
Mm.
it's more than
Yeah, I don't know, are they
50%.
even
So,
included or are we just having,
Right.
yeah,
No, I
are
think
they-
we go by the number of total parcels, and then Kim will give me a sense of,
Right.
where we are at in version of that. But
right.
Interesting. And then the operations contract you're saying is coming up? How many years is that?
Could be anything. Typically, we're doing a 3-year.
A 3-year? Okay.
And while we're building the system too, I think this is really timely, and of course, Rich
Mhm.
is very astute at these types of things. Because when we're building a system, there are a lot of costs that we can put into not necessarily the construction, but the construction, development and operations of the system we pay for out of that construction budget. Once that's gone, obviously, then we're all on our own to
Pay
manage it.
for it from the income.
From the rates, yeah.
Yeah, and I have a question, and I think, and I asked you this before too. At one point, there was talk about having the billing in-house. Would that be something that would be cheaper if we get to the point where more people are hooked up and the rates change?
Yeah, I think that's something we need to evaluate. You've had some personnel shifting around, so
Mhm.
I mean, Kim's been there, but has other, with the retirement.
It's
She's
not
taken on.
expensive. I have
So-
to say, it's really not expensive,
The-
that outsourcing.
The outsource?
I think we'd have to do not just cost, but like how could we do it better? If we
Mhm.
can do it better and respond to customers better, then I think that would be a reason to take it in-house.
No, I think that's the thing, the key is the efficiency. Wasn't
Yeah.
they get a call from someone and they
In New
just
Hampshire.
can't handle it, it's
Mhm.
much easier just to handle it right then and there, look up on the screen what the issue is and respond to them, as opposed to having refer them to a third party.
Mhm.
So the cost, there might be some small cost savings, but it's really becomes a staffing issue. So we, we've had some personnel shifts over there and go through this budget cycle and see, staffing wise, so how much work can we take on?
Mhm. I know, as I say, at one point, we were talking about doing that.
Right now, that's about I think it's about a $30,000 contract for the billing effort.
So it's, right, it's pretty good. And that includes postage and everything.
Which is not getting cheaper.
Who holds the ops contract now? The operations contract?
Penunchuk, how do you pronounce it?
Whitewater.
Whitewater, yeah.
Oh,
Whitewater.
I was talking about the, when you mail your
Oh, yeah, that's the billing company.
billing
Tentative.
company.
Oh, okay.
The billing
I'm sorry, I was
company.
thinking about the operations contract. They're the ones that operate the
The
system.
ones that operate the
They
system.
operate a lot of systems on the Cape.
They do.
They do.
And I would-
Whitewater. Was Whitewater something else?
I don't know, you'll see
Oh,
trucks with white.
Something that Clinton, I thought it was Clinton. I was
Oh,
gonna say
that's-
that.
Wow, that's going back.
Wow, okay.
I would imagine that
It's not the
that
same Whitewater.
contract would go up in cost, but that's in a situation where
Okay.
probably makes a lot of sense to outsource something like that. Even if you could hire the people, which might be questionable this far out on the Cape. The cost differential, when you talk about the pensions and the benefits, might not be too much more to pay, to outsource than to have it in-house. But the real thing is the licensing. And if we would never hire such a significant staff that we'd have duplicates. And so if that one person that holds the license that you need goes,
Gotcha.
you're in trouble. Whereas a large outfit has, they might not be on site, but they have people within their organization that can cover for,
They hold the licenses rather than the town would hold
Right.
those licenses. Okay.
and they take and they end up owning the responsibility and liability associated with all that stuff too. I was in a situation in another town up Cape back in the day and we were threatened with DEP to be shut down if we didn't file certain reports and none of the guys, because they were all mad, wanted to sign off on it because the guy that used to do it, was mad and he decided to leave. So I had to end up threatening, 3 of them, and I'd get one of them to just sign the name on, the 4 o'clock on a June 30th, it's just like, so it gets crazy stuff happens when you have it all in-house.
Are you forecasting any major capital expenses for the water, the water system
We're
right
still
now?
not finished.
The
so-
painting is the next thing and that's
That's a big cost.
How,
$500,000 to $1 million, depending on how the bidding
Okay.
falls.
Okay.
and
And
we
that-
just had an unexpected pump failure.
Yeah.
So
my
we had to
street.
replace it's not on your street, Mary, it's at the Nauset High School.
Yeah, we
Anyway,
had- we had a
If it
problem.
affects Mary, it's no.
it affects Mary. yes. It affected me too. I had brown water. It was terrible.
Yeah,
So that was.
It was a pump failure because
yeah.
of the manganese. So I think it's manganese.
no manganese, I didn't.
Or
know
iron.
what the
I
issue
can't
was.
remember.
Okay.
Some mineral and screening for that mineral is gonna be expensive. So that's an unexpected new cost because one of the wells has some elements in it that.
But not really that unexpected, honestly. I mean,
No.
it's like just like anything. It's, you got things that are gonna, need to
Stuff
be
happens.
replaced at 10 years, at 15 years, at 20 years,
Mhm.
and at 30 years. And the things that are 30 years and 20, 25 years need maintenance, at 7 or 10 or 15 years.
And that's what you're seeing with the water, but that's kind of what
Yeah.
I was getting at, there's periodic, maintenance and replacements and
Right.
repairs that have to be done all the time. And so you're looking at this now because you got the system 7 or 8 years in. Now you're planning for the 10-year cycle,
Right.
your maintenance costs are, your operation costs. You need to put a capital plan together.
It
Okay,
just seems like it's good timing because, we got 50% participation.
yeah,
We never had a rate. The initial rate is a very low, attractive rate. Even the tiers are very low. So, what I'm proposing obviously would be an increase and a revisitation of the tiers. And, perhaps we could go for more, but I think this is, what the recommendation is going to be is, I think, my opinion, a good first step. And if we need to do more in the future, we could do more in the future. Why kill it on one fell swoop if you don't need to?
there is a limitation though, how high you can raise the rates though, right? You can't turn this into a money-making operation for the town, right?
No.
No, you have to have a justification. Can never, it's the old Emerson
5%.
College case. You can't, no, you can, I don't know that there's a rate cap
Okay.
You can't make.
But you
more
can't
than-
recover more revenue
More than the
than the cost of providing.
Right,
But you can put in things like projected costs for
Yeah,
capital
sure.
and things like that.
right. Okay.
But you can't, otherwise it's, Supreme Court
Well,
basically
then
said
it's a
extra
ni- it's
fees
a hidden tax,
essentially
yeah,
become
exactly.
taxes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So I have a question, but not on water, Rich. Under item number 2. And again, under item number 2, number 3, who's on the investment committee?
What are you looking at 2 and 3, Mary? I'm sorry.
Number 2, at the item number 2, general financial management policy, and then
Oh.
under financial management policies down below.
So you're going
number
back.
3, it says
just
that
go
we have
backwards.
in the investment committee.
Yeah, we haven't had one because we don't really have any investments. That's why I was saying, this is why I want to come up with a cash management and investment policy. And then we could start maybe doing some of those things. But yeah, once we have that policy, I'm sure that policy is going to reference some sort of advisory committee.
Mhm.
So,
Okay, so we don't have one because that's,
because we don't have
I
investments.
was not aware that we did either.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see, did I have another question? Let me see, I had another question about the pension. Oh. Let me find it.
Well, Mary, I think that's a future one. Let me finish. I'm on number 4 at the moment.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were going, I didn't realize that you were proceeding like that, sorry.
So just want to point out, I'm on page 6, policy 4, this is revenue policy. This is the policy that references targeting 80 to 85% local receipts as a prior year actual. Nothing limits us from going up to 100%, but there's a step, 80 to 85, 86 to 90, and then 90 to and over 90. Require different types of notifications and discussions. S&P, which we'll get to in a minute, actually really love that policy. Number 7 under revenue policy is kind of what we just talked about, but we are evaluating fees a little bit more in depth this year. And so you will have a couple recommendations. So that's 7 and 8. And the rest kind of is that's what we do. So, these are policies, but they mirror what our practice is. So it's good we have it in both spots. Policy 5 is financial planning policy, which again, we are meeting. We follow the charter. We have a capital improvement plan. We have 5-year operating budget projections, all of which things that you guys are reviewing. And nothing's ever perfect and you can never identify everything in advance, but I think we are pretty accurate in what we're doing, and comprehensive and complete. Let's see. So now up to policy 6, which is debt management. Maybe Mary, this might be where you have your question on OPEB, but let me just say that we are pretty much mirroring this. The one area that's problematic, it could be potentially number 4, would be where we have debt service greater than 10% of general fund revenues. But again, this is only for non-excluded debt, which we don't have very much of anymore. So, we're not in danger of doing that. And also 4A is our policy is to try to keep it with, excluded and non-excluded debt under 25%, and we're well under 25%. But with some significant needs in the future, I don't know how that plays out. I haven't done that projection far enough yet to see what that looks like. So not an immediate concern, but, when we get into, wastewater several years from now, we might start approaching that and we would have to consider this, how that policy impacts any decision making. And then number 5 is I have a little bone to pick with this one, but this is, I understand and I suggested these policies, so but
So you're fighting with yourself?
fighting with myself, but, I understand the
Who's winning?
desire. It's a tie. Let's keep beating myself up. You do want to have a quick amortization on your debt service. The one exception would be our situation with the information, the projects that we are doing are significant infrastructure projects, and you're not, and it's really in my mind, more of a generational taxpayer equity issue. You're not going to implement a wastewater system or a water system and pay it back in 10 years. That those are 30-year infrastructure assets. They're going to be around for, 100 years plus. So. Seven on the reserves, we consider these all the time, as does the finance committee, and we're meeting these targets or exceeding them. And this is part of, these targets are part of our budget hearings and our budget presentations as well. So this is what I'm, why those things show up in those presentations is because they exist in these policies. So I try to measure everything that we're doing against what's in these policies. So. And then Mary, is this where OPEB came up?
Yeah, there's the bottom one.
So we have, I'm sorry, there is 8 is the contingent, I shortcut, contingent liabilities, that includes the OPEB. So we do have a policy of trying to address OPEB. But as you know, from the updates that we do at the end of each year, our actual liability has decreased because it's 2 sides to the equation. There's a funding side and there's an expenditure side. I don't know how much more successful we'll be on the expenditure side absent, general law change in Massachusetts. But we do have good experience with our regional health group. And we do chip away every year. And I would imagine that would be the same case this year on free cash funding of our OPEB liability to invest into that is the one area we have investments, but it's a third party investment, almost like a pension system, the Plymouth County OPEB Trust.
Yep.
So that's it on the financial policies, and Sonia has a question.
So I'm on number 8, the contingent unfunded liabilities policy.
Mhm.
Page 13 of 13. Under the pension one. What is your feeling? It's the last sentence of that pension paragraph. To achieve full funding by the year 2038.
I'm still on track for that. I haven't heard anything lately that there's any consideration to change that, which is the common thing. But, we're still more than 10 years away from that.
I
So
know.
maybe once we get under 10 years, they'll say, geez, we're never going to make that. We need to
Yeah.
go to 2040 now or something, but.
In order to figure that year, they would have to have used some sort of criteria to
Oh, yeah.
arrive at that and to try to, criteria up till that point is.
Well, every other year is a actuarial study on the pension plan.
Mm.
And, the big driver of that, well, it's a couple of big drivers, but salaries and costs, because pension's based on a percentage of salary, not directly, but
Yeah.
at the end of it, basically you're getting a percentage of salary on your pension. So if salaries are going up, pensions would be going up, but also contributions would be going up because those are also percentage based. So percentage of salaries, increasing in salaries. Biggest one really is the investment return that on the existing assets that are invested. This is over $1 billion pension plan. And the stock market's doing good. Then you'll see that we look
Yeah.
more fully funded than we
Right,
might
right.
when it's bad.
That's right.
So I think in the last 2 years, we went from like 66% funded
Mm.
to 75% funded. But that's because we had
Because of the stock
two good
market.
years of investment performance.
Mhm.
So that's very cyclical. And then they determine they do actual studies based on our participation, right? Who are our participants and how likely are they to actually take the pensions? Because you don't invest, hopefully it doesn't sound bad the way I'm saying this, but, someone my age at any rate, I was a mid-career professional change over to the municipal side of things. I'm likely to retire and earn my pension because that's probably why people my age take these jobs. Whereas someone that's coming in at 20, 25, 30 years old might not be as inclined because there's a 10-year vesting period. They might work for 4 or 5 years and then move back to the private sector. maybe they'll come back later on, but
Mhm.
you know, that's what all the actuaries have to determine and what's the likelihood of all that happening, and they got to come up with these projections, so.
Is there a timing, a limit when someone leaves public service, then comes back in? So supposing they come, and they do 5 years, right? And they disappear for 20 years and they come back and they start vesting, adding on to the 5 to get.
As long as you don't take your money out.
You gotta leave your
Oh, you
money
gotta take
in.
your money out. Oh,
Money
okay.
stays in.
Yeah, in industry, you lose that after 2 years. With the company.
That wasn't true for me.
Yeah,
In Connecticut, that wasn't true.
I don't know if it's a state. I think it's, with private companies I'm talking about.
And sometimes
no,
if
I'm-
you come back, if you take your money and you come back soon enough, you can buy it.
Put-
You can
put
buy
it
back
back,
a
yeah.
percentage of your time if you
Put it
put the
back
money
in.
back.
Okay, I was just curious. I think in industry, you can come back in, get into the plan, but you start over again, you know what I mean? And it's not necessarily equivalent to building on what you had when you left. Okay,
Yeah, as I say, that wasn't true for me. I left for 11 years and came back and ended up 30 years total, but
private company
yes,
and not a public company.
no.
Private
Well,
companies.
public, it was I don't know what you mean by public. It was a large insurance corporation.
Right. Was it a privately run business is what I'm saying?
No, it wasn't. It was,
Oh, was it? Okay.
it was a mutual, that means stock. Any other comments from Rich or from anybody else on the financial policies
That's good. It's helpful. Thank you.
update? Alrighty. Thank you, Rich, and we'll go on now to the current fiscal year 2024 first quarter update.
Okay, well, it's been a busy first quarter. We've been doing a lot of stuff. There is, the one thing I want to focus on is the page, it says, year-to-date general fund revenues.
Mhm.
And it doesn't, I shouldn't say general fund revenues because it doesn't include taxes. But it's really the local receipts, the estimated receipts. Comparing how we did this first quarter of
quarter
the year
Versus last.
to the first quarter of the prior year. And it's a mixed bag. I'm actually pretty surprised that the motor vehicle excise continues to grow over the last year. So that's actually a pretty significant increase.
Mhm.
But most other things are a little bit less. Than what they were in the prior quarter. And what ends up making up for it, in addition to the motor vehicle
Earnings
excise,
on investment.
is the earnings on investments. And you don't want to be,
No,
you don't want to be
unbelievable.
banking on that, but
You have a budget of 5 and we've earned 122,000.
right. So, so I don't know, first quarter is a little early. But it does seem like we have a little bit of a slowdown in some activity, and I do think we know that on the beach, and Jackie, maybe you have more detailed information than me.
See that?
But as I understand it, some of the daily sales were down, but again, that's pretty weather dependent.
It's total, yeah, that we had a very
Circumstance.
rainy beginning, so.
Yeah, at the beginning of the summer.
And it's the day rate that's affected by those cloudy days, obviously, or rainy days.
Yeah, this summer wasn't really that great, I don't think. I mean,
Yeah.
the beginning was terrible.
Weekends were terrible.
Right, so
Well,
I think she
remember-
did well considering.
Yeah,
And so, if we have great weather next May and June, well, we don't start even May, I guess, but
Yeah.
June, the end of this year, June, if it's, nice sunny days, we can make up some of this, but wouldn't count on it. But back to the financial policies is why we're only budgeting 80% of our actuals so that we can sustain a downturn. And, that might indicate if this were to hold by the time we get, maybe this year would be a case where we go up to 90% thinking that our actuals are a little lower than they have been, but we're anticipating that they could recover type of thing. But my big, concerns are always, I always find motor vehicle excise to be a good indicator of financial health. If people are buying new cars, then they're generally eating out and maybe going
they're
on
paying
vacation.
bigger taxes, higher taxes, I should say. But I have, does anybody have some questions? I have a couple questions. Anybody,
I have one,
go ahead.
what happened in vet elderly exemption?
Yeah, that's one of my
in
questions.
September
Yeah,
of this year, No,
last year.
last year was.
And that's just a timing issue, Peter.
Mhm.
I'm sorry?
It's just a timing issue of when
Oh, when they pay?
the exemptions were issued versus when the state, got submitted for reimbursement.
Right.
Yeah,
Mhm.
our exemptions, if anything, I would say are probably up
Up,
in total
definitely.
exemptions issued. Colleen's done a good job of outreach and, walking some people through the process that might not have been eligible, but didn't take advantage of it in the past. So
Right. Right. She and Alex have been doing sessions at the COA to get
Mhm.
people that don't know they
I
might
think
be
they have
eligible. So. Yeah.
coverage of one kind or another. And I have a couple questions under local receipts. It's probably about 10 down. In lieu of taxes. What is that? Somebody's giving us money instead of paying their tax? I didn't understand that.
I'm pretty sure that's the National Seashore gives us a small payment for,
Oh, I thought I asked
fire
one time whether
protection
we
or something like
received any
that.
money from them.
They used to. I don't know if they still do they?
I think they do. I don't think we get it till the end of the year though.
Okay.
As you've got 5,000 down there, but we didn't, well, yeah,
See many yet.
yeah.
Is-
And, I'm sorry.
It's a small thing.
Yeah. And down, further down where you've got, actually it's the third up, rentals, is that from our housing?
No.
What are those rentals? I mean, I know we,
Rental certificates? or is that-
people are paying us rent.
Is that
Yeah.
like the children's place and stuff? No, that would
Drawing,
be that
I am
much.
drawing a blank at the moment, so I have to send an email letting you guys know the detail, but it is not from the housing. That goes into
Okay.
a rental revolving fund.
Okay, I didn't know where it was, where it was
So
coming
drawing a
from.
blank what that might be. Is it maybe slip rentals for a daily? Do you have a daily slip rental, Jackie?
No, it wouldn't be that much money.
70, it's down here for 70,000 budget. And we receive money each month.
Yeah, and generally we are, I'm just drawing a blank at the moment, but I can let you know that.
On the hotel motel taxes, the short-term rental, meals, it's marijuana, we receive those monies on a quarterly basis.
Yeah, and actually, that's a good question. And I always wrestle with this in my head. It's like thinking of the months that the state does these things. It's like a brain twister. But that hotel motel tax, I think that's representing. So that's one payment that we received in September, but that represents, I believe,
For
April,
the period.
April, May, June.
Hmm.
So it doesn't, so it's short compared to last year, April, May, and June. But the real test is going to be, what do we get for June, July, August?
July, yeah,
which we won't-
July, August, September, it was April, May, June, July, August, September.
And we usually get that one in December, something like that.
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. So essentially, if you look at the bottom line, we're about 50,000 ahead. Not quite 50,000 ahead, but, and as you say, a good
Thanks, Deborah.
portion of that is probably because of the investment income of 121 versus last year was not quite 5, well, 4.
You're talking, which one, what are you talking about?
I'm talking,
Total.
if you take the difference of what we, the revenue last year at this time, the first quarter versus the revenue this year at first quarter. In other words, you're comparing the
2.4.
figure. The two,
Yeah, to the 2.3.
right,
Yeah.
it's about 50, not quite 50,000 difference.
But I also looked at from the point of view, it looks like in local receipts, you're at 50%. Right, so you're probably a little bit ahead with some of that. Maybe there's some timing, like you said, on that $350.
Yeah, I'd kinda-
350 grand payment.
I kind of would look at the local receipt subtotal. The state revenue is going to be there unless they tell us at some point it's not going to be, but
Yeah,
which it doesn't typically happen, but. So we're 2,248,000, we'll call it 2,250,000 this year versus 2,175,000. So that's $75,000 ahead, which is pretty much attributed to
Yeah.
earnings on investments and motor vehicle excise,
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
covering where we're falling short a little bit.
Mhm.
Yeah, I just looked at it and said 50 grand, that's the 50 grand you're ahead on the hotel motel. 'Cause the timing of the payment.
Yeah.
You know, but you're right. If you look at everything in total, the 2.4s, 2.422 against the 5.164. You're only reporting after a quarter, right?
Well, again, we're not even budgeting the short-term rentals, right?
Yeah.
So. Or just a small piece of it.
And like you said, the state's gonna come in regardless. That's all a timing issue up the top. See, it looks like you're on track. No big surprises.
No, that's pretty much
No.
the takeaway here. Other stuff happened this quarter.
Other stuff.
I'm sorry, what?
Said other stuff happened this quarter.
Oh,
We did have our bond rating updated.
oh, yes.
So there's a report that looks like this in the packet. And I'm a little bit disappointed. I think it was a good rating process, but they declined to upgrade us, so we're maintaining our AA+. So good news. If you go to the the page, second to last page has a little chart here. I think you could take as a win, such as it is. And we didn't get the upgrade, but we did upgrade our management score from strong to very strong. So I think we should be proud of that. That's a reflective of all the work that we all do, including the finance committee, on having policies and following policies. They liked the schedule that we have, the future schedule, where we talk about we have scheduled discussions on various matters. So I think that's reflective in the very strong management score. I'm a little disappointed that under budgetary performance, they're still measuring us as strong. And I think, again, this goes to, they're just running straight numbers and they didn't have the 2023 audit to get the more recent results, so they didn't give us credit for it.
Mhm.
But you can see there's a number there for 4.8%.
Mhm.
This, this is Rick's question that he asked us, how much should we be getting on, savings on appropriations and revenue budgets? Their target's 5%. We're at 4.8. I think they're not giving us credit for some of the things that we told them of how we structure our budget that should, in my opinion, make that very strong. But even if that was very strong, I still don't think they would have given us the upgrade because they still are hitting us up on debt. They seem to be hyper focused on the debt and saying that that's very weak, which I get. It's definitely not a strength. We've got a lot of debt for a small town. But this whole exercise is basically an exercise of our ability to pay back the debt we're asking to borrow.
Mhm.
And we're funding and paying for our debt service currently and as projected, and still maintaining a low tax rate and tax burden, comparatively speaking. So I don't really agree with the very weak assessment. But it is what it is. We don't really have a chance to argue.
There's no appeal process?
No.
No.
And I get where this comes from. Because back in the day, I was part of a working group that helped develop some of these criteria. And so now my approach is going to be continue the good work that we're doing to get good results. A, that has to continue. But B is, can I somehow influence the process again, like I did many years ago? And, give some kind of criteria. It's
Right.
not just a straight numbers calculation. It's,
Yeah. Rich, how do other towns with higher bond ratings compare relative to this metric?
Well, so that's a good question. So the closest comparison. So I'm going to follow up with the analysts. They are going to give us the courtesy of going through the rating.
Oh, you haven't had that opportunity yet?
So I just
Okay.
haven't had a chance to schedule that. But I'm going to pick apart Orleans because they're in a very similar situation and they have more debt.
What wastewater?
Yeah.
When's the last time they had theirs evaluated?
Not sure.
In the AAA.
They're a triple A.
Yeah,
I think
So-
I have that.
I just wanted to get their rating back when they had less debt, maybe they
Could
could go on
be.
date rate.
You know, the
Debt
debt that
recently.
they have been taking on lately
Mhm.
probably has been SRF debt, which doesn't need to be rated.
Right.
I don't know,
Or
but
at
it seems
least
like
it's
they've had a
just
lot of
AAA.
borrowing.
They've had a ton of borrowing, but it might be because, sometimes, I mean, we tell the truth, right? So when they're saying, well, what do you anticipate for future borrowing? We let them know we have wastewater costs coming up.
Mhm.
And I think,
Sure. But every town on the Cape or in Massachusetts is gonna have that issue,
exactly.
right?
So
And it's really, I think Rich said this already, it's not the amount as much as it is your ability to pay. And are you showing a history of making those payments on time, and being able to manage the budget based on the revenue you're taking in?
Almost everybody pays on time. It's the, is there a
Ramifications.
risk of it not being on time? And the risk would be you're overtaxing your people that are paying the freight.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to say you are if you're in the bottom third of the state.
Mhm. That's
I
exactly
mean, if
right.
we're in the top third and we're asking to, do
Exactly.
$2 million of wastewater, that's probably gonna be a problem.
Yeah, exactly right. And it doesn't sound like they make that kind of
No, and this,
No.
assessment.
so it's like
and at
lots of,
least we could have a positive outlook.
yeah. It's like a lot of things, right? It's the current rating process. It's better than it ever used to be. I kind of like the old days, like a lot of us do, but
Everyone loves the old days, Rich.
but-
Yeah.
the old, but then you had a
Giving up your
banking,
age by saying you like the old days.
but then you have a banking crisis and then there's an overreaction and overcorrection to fixing all that. And now we're with this.
Yeah,
And so,
Yeah. yeah.
now some of us might try to get together and influence how this happens, and that'll probably be an overreaction and we'll, have a lot of missed ratings again, 10 years, who knows? It's cyclical, right? But
But as a result of not, I'm sorry, Mary,
No, go ahead.
as a result of not getting the AAA, what's that gonna mean to the taxpayers in terms of the rate that we're gonna get?
so as it turns
Exactly
out,
what my question was going to be.
Yeah,
so it turns out, I'd say at this point, not too much, because the other thing that we wrapped up, the whole reason getting this done is because we're issuing about $10 million in debt.
yeah.
So we got our bids back and the net interest cost is 3.7%. That includes a little bit of higher rate on a 20-year bond, but most of the 10-year things like the dredging and property across the street are
Oh,
10
Beach
years.
Plum?
Beach Plum are about 3.55. So it probably, at most, I would say, cost us a tenth, and maybe probably not even 1/10%.
Between having a AAA rating and a double A.
at
Is
this
there
point.
just a double A or is it, if it's double A, is it always double A plus?
No, there's a AA plus is better than a
Better
double
than
A.
a double A, that's what I thought. So the difference between a double A plus and a triple A is what you're discussing.
Right.
And I had a question on page 3. At the second paragraph at the top where it says. The town is also preparing for a wastewater improvement project, the scope of which is still being determined and currently expects additional borrowing of about 90 million in no interest loans from the Commonwealth. While this borrowing is still a few years out, it may contribute to the town's elevated debt, which constrains upward rating movement.
Mhm.
My concern is that at the most recent meeting on the wastewater stuff, that 90 million isn't going to do it.
Well, now it's more,
I know.
but to that point, I mean, just read that. I mean, that bothers me.
Mhm.
So the current year's rating is being affected by
The
something
fact that we
that's not might happen in 5 years. Well, but the reverse isn't true, right? I
I
mean,
wrestle with these things, Peter.
we might
you know?
have, a lot more revenues or much, you're not giving us credit for
Yeah.
positive things that might happen.
Right.
You're not giving, and it doesn't reference,
They should put in something to that effect.
And that,
Or take that into account, let's put it that way.
so this is what I'm saying, that, the current methodology is supposed to eliminate subjectivity,
Yeah,
and it does by and large,
but this certainly.
except for this one, which is like the
Certainly
big
isn't.
thing that
That's
they're
right.
holding us back because of this one
Right.
thing that might happen.
Right,
I mean, we're putting it in our capital plan because it might happen, but first, we're several years out. And
And what
second,
if
it needs to be
We don't
approved.
vote for it. Yeah.
And third, and we explain this to them, even if it is approved, at least at the 90 million between the short-term rental and the subsidies, that we've got this debt service on that 90 million, 75% covered.
Mhm. So why don't they take that?
But what's the impact on your ability to pay if you've got your,
Yeah,
you know,
covered. So why, that should be, from my perspective, that should be taken into account when they do this work.
right? So if you're gonna say that 5 or 6 or 10 years from now,
Like call.
you got, you got $90 million of more debt coming on, you also ought to consider you've covered 75% of that debt service.
Yeah.
You can't just pick one, but not the other.
Yeah, right. So it's not,
It's much better than the last gentleman.
Yeah.
We
oh,
had.
really? Oh,
Yeah,
different,
much
different
smarter,
person?
much more experienced, I would say.
Is it somebody that has done some of the other towns out here? That-
Perhaps, he
that
didn't
would
tell
seem
us,
to-
but-
Yeah.
No, I mean, I would think that would be a plus.
Well, at least he's out of Boston. The last one was not. He
Oh,
was in the Midwest.
Oh, really?
Mm.
Oh,
Well, it'd be interesting to hear after you had your
Yeah.
Yeah.
follow-up discussion with them, you know, what their responses are to the questions that you and the rest of us have been having here right now and
Right.
and what their reaction is, you know, like you say, it's almost like that comment you just talked about. They, you know, they want their cake and eat it too, so to speak, you know, and that doesn't seem appropriate.
What are the stable part of the rating? What are the categories there? Positive, negative, stable, or
Pretty much, yeah.
maybe they're using that sentence about the 90 million to justify the stable as opposed to positive. And I mean,
Oh, yeah.
does that make
No,
any
he references,
difference?
he references an upgrade, he references in that sentence. Limits the potential for an
For
upgrade
an
or something.
upgrade, but do you think the stable versus positive makes a difference to the bond interest rate that we can get?
Doubt it.
Yeah,
It makes a difference to
seems
me.
like really splitting hairs.
I feel like positive outlook is positive.
Mhm.
Who wants to be stable when you can be positive?
Yeah. But yeah, I mean,
is this in the form that we've gotten in the past? The same type of, for everybody, I mean, it's the one we've gotten and this other towns get the
Yes.
same type of. Okay,
But if you consider that we had a AA+ with a positive outlook when we had $57,000 in the stabilization fund, and we had just taken on $130 million in debt from the water system,
Mhm.
and we had no reserves, we had no financial management policies in writing at that time. How far we've come in the past 6 or 7 years to not only manage all of that, but add such quality financial management, it just
Frustrating.
doesn't make sense to me.
did we get up to AAA at one point?
We lost the AAA in 2017.
17.
We were AAA for years.
Yeah, no, I think I've told you all this before, but I just think there's an implicit bias. You know, you got Cape Cod and everybody on Cape Cod's great, except for Bourne, Yarmouth, Eastham, one in every region of the Cape is, you know, like I don't want to use a pejorative term, but you know, we're
Right.
you know, not the
Not the
cream of the crop,
favorite.
you know, we're not the favored child of.
Mhm.
We're not Chatham, you know, we're not Mashpee. You know, so there's always, you know, the cream of the crop and then we're at the bottom of the.
Yeah, but now you're talking subjective, you know, if that's the case,
That's my.
you know what I
point,
mean?
right.
That's the fight back with the state, you know what I mean? If they're not, you know.
And it's
they
hard
Can't be
not-
holding us to different standards.
It's hard to know what we have and compare us to other towns who actually have less than we have and have the same or better rating,
Mm.
right?
And the opportunity, the upside, as you said, we're in the bottom 1/3 of tax, you know what I mean? So you've got room if you should choose to use that, but you're handling the debt and maintaining a low
Yeah.
tax rate, you know what I mean? So I guess one of the pushbacks to that is, what do you want to do? What do you want me to do? Raise all the money and price all my taxpayers out?
Right.
You know,
Put those loans over 10 years,
Yeah.
and pay them off faster.
when you don't have to, based on your performance. So that, you know, that's the hard question. back
Well, and
to
it's
that.
like, and a lot of those metrics don't, I mean, these metrics were set in 2010, 11, and I think got formalized in 12. Rates were different, right? Why would I pay back things at a,
Yeah.
3%, 0.7 is getting a little higher, but at some point, at one point, we could borrow between 2.5% and 3.5%. Well, why would you be in a rush to pay that back? You
Yeah, you
would
wouldn't.
take the longer term.
Right,
those are prudent business decisions you're making. You know, if industry was held to those
think
standards,
so.
you know, it'd be,
That's what's
I don't
confusing
think it
to
would
me,
fly.
is I look at where we were with a AAA plus positive outlook, and I
Yeah.
look at where we are now, and it doesn't make any sense to me.
And that's the way I feel about Wellfleet. They were AAA for a long time, and look what they've gone through compared to us. They have been downgraded now, but I'm
But
just
to where
saying,
we are,
yeah.
which makes no sense to me.
Well, it'd be interesting to see what your
Yeah.
post.
The good news is, if I
assessment.
understand it, it only makes a difference of 1/10% on our.
Yes,
10 million
right now,
Right
yes.
now, so
Yeah.
that's. Don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but the high school borrowing. If the district borrows the money, but
Yes,
they don't really have a bond rating because they don't,
No, they do.
they go by the bond ratings of of the district towns.
So we're dragging, well, both Buffalo and us are dragging down the.
Yeah.
I don't think,
So Brewster's AAA.
yes.
yeah.
I
Orleans is
have
Star.
I have it
That's
here.
good for us for high school anyway, yeah.
But generally, you're never gonna get anything above, in matter of fact, you probably get
Yeah, Boosters
below.
AAA.
Your lowest member, participating member in a district, so. But I
Right.
would imagine the district probably is gonna get a AA plus.
I think that's what they.
Yeah.
They're gonna be AA
Plus.
plus, that's what you're saying.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, the
hopefully
concern-
that'll only mean 1/10%.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
The concern would be, that a lot of times not unusual for joint special purpose districts to be rated a notch lower than the lowest participant, because they have liquidity issues. They're relying on your members to pay you on a monthly or quarterly basis. You don't just have general cash flow,
Oh, okay.
but I don't think that'll happen here.
Especially with two of them at AAA. And
Rich, how often do they do the rating?
Anytime we issue debt.
Okay.
So it is pretty costly to issue debt. So we try to, this,
Costly and time consuming.
I have to go through this and kind of pull it all together and give an update, but I bet you this was about bond counsel fees, financial advisory fees, all kinds of stuff. It's probably upwards of $100,000 to issue debt. It's covered because we get premiums, bond premiums. But if we didn't have that 100,000, we'd have more premiums that would help offset and decrease the interest cost. So it does cost a lot of money to issue this debt, and that's why we've avoided doing it. And, I really only want to do it once every 3 years at
We
most.
try to
if I-
bundle, can't you bundle
Yeah,
stuff?
exactly.
And that's what he did this time. We had bands, and then we,
Mhm.
are the other towns in the district gonna have to be rated for the borrowing for the high school?
They'll use the existing.
They'll use whatever.
and I
think
think they're
it-
using our same financial advisors, aren't they?
Yeah, no, Wellfleet uses another one.
Yeah, but isn't the high school is using ours?
Oh, high school.
Yeah.
No, high school uses.
Oh, that's
Lynn,
right. You're right,
so
Lynn.
She's the same as Wellfleet. Or the other towns other than Wellfleet are Hilltop. But they're all good.
They are all.
So,
I have one question which I forgot to ask, and we're doing the financial policy. When did the town first put into place that financial policies document? We had it for a long time.
Says it right on it.
21 on it.
2021.
Oh, wait,
That version of it.
No. Yeah,
Adopted
right.
September 2021.
yeah, no, I'm not, but I mean, that's the first time we ever had financial.
That's correct. We had, we had policies, they just weren't collected
yeah.
into one place in a,
And then finally, I updated you guys a month or two ago on the year end. Gave you an estimate of free cash.
Yeah.
Free cash has actually been certified. And I think you might remember in yellow at about $100,000 placeholder was just being a little cautious. So general fund is at 5,831,000. And so now that we're going into the budget season, we'll talk to the select board. And keep you informed as to the utilization of that. But we continue to be committed, obviously, to we got to measure out of that 5.8, how much was generated from the short-term rental that we've committed to the wastewater stabilization. So we got to take that. So it's a big number, but there's things that we're committed to doing with that. And with this bond issue, we will now also have, won't be part of this free cash, so it'll be the next one. But we need to start committing short-term rentals revenues to the debt service of this bond, because part of that bond was on this $6 million for wastewater planning.
Design.
So I have, not today's discussion, but in the future, I gotta start balancing how we're gonna utilize that versus the debt exclusion, there's a balancing act. And what, this, just give you a preview. The way this debt that we're issuing was structured wasn't level debt service, it was level principal, which means that the debt service is a little bit front loaded. It's cheaper in the over the life of the bond to do it that way. But the other thing it does is it means that the debt service drops off a little bit every year. So now that we have a debt exclusion on this wastewater planning bond, and we have short-term rental receipts, how can I balance that to make sure that we can capture that debt drop off? So that when we have the big issuance, if we have the big issuance, to have that debt drop off help pay for it, while keeping, all things being equal, the tax levy would stay the same. So,
Of the 5.8, some of that was left over from last year.
Mhm.
So was that 1.6, something like 1.6?
Yep.
So we had free cash this year of 4.2, so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay.
but right off the bat, we got $1.5 million or so of short-term rentals that we have to account for. And I plan on probably about $1 million that we shouldn't spend just for reserves.
Mhm.
So we're at, take 2.5 right off the bat, off that.
And then.
And then-
$1.5 million for capital.
And then every year, all things
For
being
capital.
equal, we have about $1.2 million, I think this year slated. We'll see how it ends up coming out when I put everything together for this year.
Mhm.
So, that's kind of the thing we've been talking about, right? We shouldn't be,
Counting on it.
so nickel and diming the budgets that we don't generate this free cash, because if we don't generate this free cash, then we can't do these other things, and we end up going back to the well and increasing the tax rate for these other
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, it's a
So
vicious,
it's vicious
vicious
cycle.
circle.
It's just-
So Rich, this letter from the state, is this essentially, how do you look at this, like an audit of the books, closure of the books, what is it that she did before she authored this? based
Well, actually,
on
compared to other states, most states don't have a process like this. I used to do, one of my biggest clients ever was the city of Providence, and it always astounded me that they never had to, whatever I gave them, they say, yeah, all right, great, that's it.
Okay.
I didn't have to send anything to the state, and like, oh, all right. No wonder they got, Buddy CNC got away with things, but, no, every town has to submit a financial statement to the state, and there's a checklist you got to fill out and answer certain questions.
Yep.
To help them analyze basically your activity and your ending result to make sure that, because the starting point of all of this free cash is what's called the unreserved fund balance in your general fund. So they want to make sure that you've accounted for all the things that might increase or decrease that. So for instance, did you, in your determination of your unreserved fund balance, have you accounted for all the appropriations from your May town meeting?
Yeah.
That are applicable to next year? Because if you hadn't, they're going to take that out, So it ends up becoming they go through all these questions so they can determine that you've done everything you're supposed to do and that they have a level of So it's not an audit, but it is a process that does result in making sure that you've accounted for everything.
Okay, so it's like a certification process, so you don't go out and spend more than you really have in your free cash.
Yeah, in other
and Get
states-
into trouble with the taxpayers.
In other states, we close the
The
books
state has to bail
and you
you
say
out.
you got $5.8 million on reserve fund balance. Yeah, everyone just believes you.
Yeah.
There's a wide array of due diligence that, one town might have versus another town and how they arrive at that.
So now they ask everybody to ask,
So everybody
answer the
submits,
same questions and providing you, telling them the right data.
right? And we also, certification of the tax rate is a whole process of the state. So the state Division of Local Services has a Bureau of Accounts, which is the
Mhm.
accounting side of things, which does the free cash. And they have a Bureau of Local Assessment, and they go through their own process for a certification of values and tax rates and making sure you've got all your appropriations. So I wouldn't say that it's not looking a lot of detail necessarily. But at a high level, it's going to pick up problems And it does, I think it's a great thing. It's a good internal control statewide that, every town has met a certain level of standard, has at least answered the questions.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, there's Art. When did he?
5 o'clock.
I just saw Art now.
Didn't even hear him come in.
Have you been hiding, Art?
No, I'm here.
Oh, dear. What time is it? 5:20? Art,
I've
5:20.
been here since about 10 minutes to 5.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my calendar said 5 o'clock, so I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. So 4:50? Okay.
I know you'll bring that up in a future meeting about how I'm late for meetings, but that's okay.
Oh, are there any other questions on the free cash? All right, we're going to go on to item number 6, old business. And oops. The first item under 6 old business is the capital project update, and I think all of us are aware that we have voted Steve and Peter to be on the capital projects committee, and Peter has been in touch with Jackie, and so was I, and you're hoping to have your first meeting in next month, Jackie?
November, yeah.
Yeah. And you're still, you were waiting, I know there are 2, Steve and Peter from us and somebody from the select board and yourself. So that leaves one person that you're still waiting to hear from.
One person I've talked to the person,
Oh,
they're just filling out an application.
Oh,
We
good.
just didn't have it on the website and there was a glitch, so.
Hmm.
But he's interested and we'll take a look at that. It has to go to the
Go
search
through the
committee. And then-
process. So you're hoping to have the first meeting on
I am, yeah.
in November. So, Steve,
And since we're not probably voting on anything, we could definitely just have the first meeting in early November and just invite him to it, even if he's not appointed yet.
Right.
It's gonna take a lot to catch up on everything. There's just a lot to just catch up on.
All right, and we're down to Nauset Regional High School construction, and I'm going to turn it over to Peter. But before I do that, Peter, I'm just wondering, and I know there will be some questions. Excuse me, whether it would be a good idea or people's thoughts are asking, I think it was about a year or so ago that was it Chris Easley that came to one of our meetings?
Chris may have come. We had
Yeah.
Greg
Oh,
Lavasser,
Greg, maybe it was
the
Greg.
chair of the building committee in once,
Yeah,
and he's happy to come anytime. He's
Yeah.
told me that.
I'm just wondering what people's thoughts are on, and asking Greg to come back now that we're another year. We have an assortment of issues going on with contingency funds, that type of thing. Do people feel that it would be worthwhile to have him come back?
Sure.
Yeah,
Yes.
I actually talked to him last week and he again reiterated that he'd be happy to come in. I just don't, I don't want to spread him too thin, but it's been probably a year since he's been in. So, and he definitely is the person that knows the most about the inner workings of the whole thing, but I've got a pretty good working knowledge of it. I'm on the the change order committee, which is a big one, and and I go to a weekly meeting with the owner, the architect, and the owner's project manager, a weekly meeting between the 3. So I can answer most of the questions, but Greg's
And I would say if you're looking for contingency, out of courtesy, we should invite Brooke Clenchy because it's really it's the district that's issuing the debt, dealing with the MSBA. So if you're looking at the building project in terms of, as Peter said, the brass tacks and what's going on every day, that's Greg. But you might want to talk to Brooke if you want some assurances on how they're going to spend money. You need to talk to Brooke.
So I can tell you that the project is going along pretty smoothly for such a huge project. There are like between 100 and 130 men and women working on that job every day. Monday through Thursday, a smaller workforce on Friday because a lot of the contractors work 4 10-hour days to save the travel. So yeah, it's a busy place that they seem to be coexisting with the students and the, school operations pretty well. The construction part is walled off and doesn't seem to be much interference or complaints. They got the parking lots were kind of finished ahead of schedule. Originally, they were going to be part of phase 2, and the contractor wanted to do them in phase 1, and it was a great idea because they're totally full every day, especially with the 130 tradespeople that are there. So yeah, and the big thing that we're wrestling with now is the change orders, and I tried to get a feeling from Steve Kanonchik about the level of change orders that we're seeing, and compared to what his experience was in building schools for
Similar projects.
very similar projects. He built, I think he was involved with 30 or more public schools. And he could speak for himself, but I don't think Steve was too alarmed by the amount of change orders. He said a lot of change orders are to be expected. Is that right, Steve?
Well, from a quantity perspective, I agree. But I also share the concern about the projected going ahead change order amount. We don't know what that is. We have some big risk items coming up, and we talked about the FF&E, for example, which has not been purchased at this point.
I'm sorry, FF&E.
Furniture, fixtures and
Got
equipment.
it. All right, thank you.
Yeah, we talked about the future project being heavy renovation, which Peter brought to my attention because I didn't know how the project was phased out. It's not new construction, which would be cleaner as far as a contingency standpoint. So I still say you got a high risk out there, especially because of the history to date. And the one of the things that we talked about was looking a little bit more with the OPM and the contractors out there, as far as we know what's been committed to date, but we don't know what's pending as to stuff that is currently known, but hasn't been converted into a change order at this point. There's a dollar value out there representing that amount also.
Yeah, Steve, on your advice, I brought that up yesterday at, there was a change order committee meeting, and the OPM, I was told that the OPM is working on that type of a cost projection to try to, at least get placeholders in place for things we know are coming down the pike. Everybody agreed that, well, the FF&E, it comes towards the end of the job. And so the budget that they were carrying was a projection kind of based on a percentage of the total cost of the job. So, and the way that the estimates were for the main project and how they were off by 30%, a lot of us are nervous about what's the status of that estimate, and is that going to be way low? So they're already working on getting hard bids on a lot of the FF&E and try to develop and see where that budget is and if it's still realistic. So, and the change order committee, who kind of makes recommendations on the change orders to the larger building committee, is of the mindset now that we're not advising, we're not recommending any change orders that are, it would be nice to have this, or this might look better. We're trying to just stick to what was in the documents and, you know, trying not to, spend any extra money needlessly. So that's where we are.
Who's coming in with questions or thoughts, or why don't we do it this way versus whatever was originally planned?
Well, so the specs are hundreds of pages long. The plans, a full set of plans weighs 40 something pounds, so I don't know how many pages, but probably 50. So there are a few, you know, discrepancies are to be expected. And that's, so I was trying to get a feel from Steve about how perfect you know, are the plans, and they're never perfect.
No.
I think I said normally jobs have hundreds and hundreds of changes,
Yeah,
normal.
there you go.
But I think, Peter, the only one I can think about that's not frivolous, but that's extra was the stage lighting. Wasn't there a little change order on stage lighting in one of those
Yeah,
packets? And I think it was just, again, like taking out one kind of lighting and putting in another, or something that caused a cost overrun. It wasn't one of the huge ones, but that's the
Right.
type of stuff that I think we get, Peter's talking about when he says we're going to look at those harder.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised with the numbers. It was the dollars. It was really, you know,
Yeah,
given
but-
where we are.
But the total project is so huge. I
Yeah.
think it. But there's no doubt we started with less contingency than we should have on a renovation that included a lot of demolition and we knew that. We knew that. We just had a budget and we were trying to stick to the budget.
One of the questions I did have was one of the change orders the contractor had. I think he was doing part of the reno or demo and found out that the original contractor had put some stuff in the walls or didn't put enough something in the walls, and as a result, it was wrong and had to be redid. Okay, I got that. What's the ramifications for that for the rest of the school as it exists?
So-
Is that something that's got to be fixed, or is that something that we just let ride?
I think what you're thinking of, if I'm got you right, is the biggest change order to date is on the end
And
building,
building, yeah.
which was built in 1995. The
Okay,
whole rest of the campus was built in 1970,
70s.
71, whatever. And so the 95 building was
Mhm.
where their big surprises were, where they
Was that the windows? Was
They
that-
intended to save the windows. They
Yeah.
found out when they started taking it apart that the way the windows were installed, they couldn't be saved. And a lot of the workmanship wasn't what they expected to find when they took the skin off the building. So, you know, I think that's a one-off.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
rest of the campus was all built at the same time. It's much more predictable.
okay, so we're not, you don't see that there'll be a ripple effect of that to another part of the building we
No.
weren't forecasting to touch.
No,
Okay,
As Steve said, what we're worried about is new surprises when we, do
Yeah.
more demo.
it's still a remodel, so,
Yeah.
you're gonna probably find some things in the walls that you weren't expecting, but
But that was. a
but it
lot.
wasn't, that it was against code or anything like that.
no, it was,
It's wacky. There
it
was some
just
wacky
was-
stuff.
Well, that, and that was my concern, wacky stuff that's not the code. Now we got a building that maybe we weren't gonna touch. Do we have something in the walls there that has to be corrected?
Oh, it's been correct. That's what the change order
Oh,
Or
was.
is it just that part of the
About
building
the
attached to
next
the
part.
modification? Yeah, I'm talking about the stuff we're not even touching. Are there walls we weren't touching that have been put together the same way
no,
that now have to
Oh.
be fixed?
no, that was all that one building
Okay,
and building, all the other buildings were built differently and we've actually, well, we tore one down. And so I guess G building is really
Yeah.
the only one that,
And I think like when the architect and engineers, they anticipated that there may be problems in those buildings because they're older.
Gotcha.
We didn't anticipate that the newest
Yeah,
building
right.
was going to be the problem one. I think that's the surprise part.
Mhm.
gotcha. Okay, I follow. I forgot there was two.
Yeah. that-
two
Different
steps. I mean, I
times,
remember when
different
the
times.
original school was built playing around the construction site. But
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, knowing now what we know, if we knew now, we knew then, you could make a case that maybe N building should have come down, just like the old E building did. but I still think it would have been, it's pretty much a wash.
Okay,
We didn't save any money by not taking it down, but I don't think it cost us more than it would have, because we would have had to get rid of all that material.
Mhm.
You know, and we put it into the waste stream and stuff, and so we get points for that, for reusing a lot of the campus from the lead. And do you remember,
Are you applying for lead?
we're gonna,
Yes.
the plans are designed to be lead silver, lead
Yes,
gold.
go, the,
So what do we get? Do we get a
You
cash
get, you
benefit
get
from
some,
that?
you get some monies.
at the end, you
Yes.
have to be, you have to wait till the end.
Wait
have to
till
wait
it-
till the
wait till it
end.
That
passes.
might be something we can use for
Yeah.
FF&E too. I don't know. And I think I feel so much more confident because of Bright Builders. I mean, I think if we had gotten a different construction company, we would have been in trouble. But they really look at each thing, like several of our change orders were to the positive, where they said, you don't need, we don't need this. We can
Couple
do
of them,
this
yeah,
better. Yeah.
couple. But,
And I think they'll continue to do stuff like that too. So.
Yeah, well, the process, as Steve knows, they, when they finally get the job, these contractors, they immediately dig into
Mhm.
all the way, every little bit of it and try to, and wherever there's a question or something, or a contradiction in the plan, they send out these RFIs, requests for information.
Mm.
And the architect has to deal with every single one of them. There have been hundreds so far. So, but I think that's good news because they've been looking at these plans and they're pounding away at any little discrepancy they can find so that we know about them and
Solve them quicker.
and we can, and then they price them and we decide whether we want to go ahead. But, so hopefully that'll slow down the rate of surprises. So the bottom line for anybody that didn't pick it up was we're supposedly 32% done with the project, but we're 42% into the contingency. So that's why the red flags are up. But that's not necessarily
Yeah.
uncommon
Mhm.
in a remodeling project, because a lot of stuff comes up in the beginning, right, Steve?
Yes, absolutely.
True, it's true.
Until it's the end.
Till it's the end and there's nowhere to go.
Punch list. Good.
So there you have it. We do have the good news of the state has, I don't know if it's not officially rewarded, but we're gonna see some money from the MSBA.
Was the
for-
meeting yet?
for our
The meeting
project.
was scheduled
meeting-
for yesterday?
Was it
Oh.
yesterday? It's definitely
26th? I had on my calendar that was.
Tomorrow.
26th. That
The
sounds about right.
MSBA meeting?
And that's not yesterday though.
Tomorrow,
Oh, it's tomorrow.
still tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. okay.
And at that meeting, I guess
you're
they're
right.
gonna shed some light on how that money
But
can
the
be
7 point,
used.
well, the 100 million, which we're hope the 7.2 for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're one of 19 or something like that.
School.
We'll find out
schools.
whether it's really gonna be
Construction.
7.2 and then how we can use it. And
Yeah,
maybe we can use it on the project. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll find out though.
How will they inform us? Will they?
I don't know. I think Greg
Yeah, the
Lesser's going to the
OPM, yeah.
meeting, so
Oh,
I'll
he
know.
went to the meeting. Oh, okay.
Well, it's tomorrow, right?
Yeah, well, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
right. I've got my calendar
But I
confused.
can find
Yeah,
out.
I think I
find out
had on my,
what
the
happens there.
26th, which is tomorrow.
But that's sort of a double-edged sword, because do you want to use the 7 million to pay down the borrowing, so we don't have to borrow as much?
Mhm.
Or do you
apply
want to put it into the project so that, the final product is nicer?
Peter, we were talking about that today and Rich or Jackie, correct me if I'm wrong. You can't spend that money on the project without going back to a town meeting,
Okay,
okay?
Oh,
Well, we can't exceed the appropriation,
Yeah,
the total of whatever it was, 168.
But-
169.
but MSBA may say you can't
As this
put it
guy
on
says-
the project no matter what you do.
Yeah.
But maybe they'll say we can, but what you're saying is we'll have to go back to town meeting.
Well, I think we can definitely use it in the project. We can take the money, the MSBA money, and use it instead of our money and then have our money left over at the end.
Right.
But if we're going to spend more than that original appropriation, we have to ask town meeting for it. But if we have it in hand and we ask town meeting, that's a little bit different than.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
But we should know more
Yeah.
after tomorrow's meeting, I guess. So that's the high school in a nutshell. If anybody wants to take a trip up there, I can
I got it. I haven't
arrange
been
it
up
so
there
we
yet.
can walk around. It's kind of dirty and muddy and, loud, but
It looks
construction.
amazing.
it's a construction site, but I'm happy to go up there and walk around. And so is Bob Caperso, who's the facilities director for the district, is up there on daily, and our owner's project manager has a man on site every day who's happy to walk around and explain what's going on.
So I enjoyed the tour that we took.
Yep.
This was last summer. But I'm trying to remember what it was.
Yeah, it
It
was
was towards like
warm weather.
May or June, yeah. Yeah, I'd be interested in, would you want to set up a time? I mean, we don't want to go individually here, there and yonder. Set up a time
Yeah, we
like
could do
before
it.
and,
Sure, do it by email or something.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions from anybody on the school? Thanks, Peter. Okay, we're down to the Nauset Regional School Committee Budget and Finance Committee. And I just want to say that several of us have been going to the meetings. I think the first meeting, Peter and I and Jerry from the Select Board went. The second meeting that they had, I went. The last meeting was, I think, Peter and Tom.
Yeah.
The two of you went. We have one coming up and Steve has nicely said that he would like to go and I'm planning on going to it as well. So I think we'll proceed in that light and let everybody know things that need to be discussed or brought up as the meetings progress. I don't know if the two of you have anything to say about the last one that you two went to, but.
I might have a report.
Yeah, no, not much of a report. They said they're struggling with the same things you would expect them to. Transportation is up, sped costs are up. They got more students that are going to charter schools than they expected to go. So they're making the tactical decisions they got to make as anyone.
Buying bus drivers.
Well, but there's the same problem in every town, right? So, bus drivers are making 2 and 3 cycles, trips right now in order to get the kids to school. But the one thing I did think coming out of that meeting was these weekly meetings, which I think they have weekly, are good for the tactical, insight into what's going on at the school budget. It's almost, I'm surprised they're meeting every week,
I don't think they're meeting every
Yes.
week.
No, is it every 2 weeks?
Every
2 weeks, okay.
every 2 weeks, I think.
But what they told me though, and this is really, I think where some of this discussion happened last year when we went through the budgeting process here, is the meetings for us to really get up the curve on what they're doing for planning for budgets are in January.
Yeah.
So those are the ones that I'd like to make sure that,
We cover.
we cover, these are good. So we're understanding the tactical stuff. If you really want to get into the weeds, you know what I mean? But the ones for us as a FinCom, and so that we can talk to the select board and say that, yeah, we knew it was coming. This makes sense. Are really in January, so that we can avoid just saying it was a rubber stamp meeting that we went to like I felt last year. So that's the only thing I want to bring out. I think January really the ones that I'm most interested in as part of this FinCom and our responsibility.
I should say that all the ones that I've been to, and I'm assuming it's true for the two of you, we're the only ones that are there. Citizen speak. There's nobody else coming to the meetings that
Well,
any other.
at the meeting Peter and I were at last time, I'm pretty sure we were as many of us at the meeting as there were members of this committee. Okay.
Their
Finally,
quorum at one
yeah,
point.
at one point they didn't have a quorum to continue. So,
But some of the other towns, not all of them, have members of the
Yeah,
committee
on
are
the-
like
on
are
the
from
committee.
Brewster. or
There's one from
Orleans.
Brewster.
Yeah, I don't think there's anyone from Wellfleet.
Yeah.
But yeah, Tom and I we figured out these meetings now and pretty much through December are they're reviewing the last year's budget.
Right,
It was a kind of a recap, a snapshot of where
6:30,
where they stood
23.
after the first quarter of FY 24.
We're doing-
Yeah, same thing we
Same thing we're doing.
and then the other thing that stood out to me is how much of the budget is, I know what her word for Giovanna's word was, but it's sort of set in stone. I mean, a lot of it
Mhm.
is just there and you gotta, so the discretionary part is fairly small. But yeah, I guess they've already started their budget process for FY 25 in terms of sending out requests to to the
Yeah, it
various.
sounds
schools.
like they're very much similar to what Rich is
Parallel to
doing
what we're
with.
doing.
Exactly.
They are also doing union negotiations though, although not for all of theirs either, for a couple of theirs. So I don't know.
I think if we missed one or two of these in the fall timeframe,
Be okay,
I
but you're
don't think
right,
we'd
the
miss
real
much,
stuff.
but
is-
January, I think are the ones we want to make sure that we have some coverage at so that we can look intelligent when we breathe art.
Yeah,
You know, Art just says, yeah, what are you guys doing?
But I think it's important for them to see that we are interested.
Yeah,
I
and
think
they were
I think
impressed.
they appreciate that. Yeah.
I think they were surprised when we showed up a second time.
Actually, only one of the meetings per month is what they call the dashboard,
Dashboard.
where they review,
Oh, yeah.
the budget compared to last year's and to see what the status is.
Mm.
So,
So we will proceed as we've been doing, and I thank Tom and Peter and Steve will be going to the next one. The other item under old business is the department budget questions, and we did discuss this briefly last time. And I have received some questions from one member of the committee. What I'd like to propose, since some people felt one way and some people felt other ways, is that before we meet with, let's say, the fire department or the police department or whatever that we're scheduled to meet, that the questions that we had put together last year would be sent out to everybody prior to, and then people could review it, the committee members could review it, add, change, alter whatever their thoughts were on what had been on there. Put on new ones, new questions if things have happened in the meantime, from one year to the next. Instead of starting from scratch, which is what I did last year. Do people feel that would be worthwhile, or do you have somebody have another thought on how to proceed?
I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
And maybe letting us know what the schedule is too.
Yeah,
I think
well, we'll
last
be-
year we
we'll
got
be-
a little.
We'll be working on that everybody will know in advance when we're going to be meeting with police, fire, human services.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, Mary, I wasn't clear. When we need to get the questions in, because they're gonna need them, I don't know,
Oh,
a week or
oh,
10
yeah,
days
yeah, yeah,
before.
right,
In some
right,
cases,
yeah.
it may
So-
be, we're submitting the questions, not for the next group we're meeting with, but for the second group, depending.
Yeah,
on
the timing,
Yeah,
because we
timing.
meet with everybody about
Timing's
once
important.
every week, so we will need to get that out in time to meet that need, that time. Okay, that's what we'll do, going forward on the department budget questions. Does anybody have any other old business that they'd like to bring up before we go on to the next item? Okay, the next item, 7A, Town Hall renovations, and I've also been in touch with Jackie on this one, and we were talking about it at the community preservation agenda meeting that I had yesterday with Paul. And I sent out the town manager's report that has been put together by you, and Kayla sent it to me, or you sent, I can't
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
remember. Different people at different times, and I've passed it out to everybody on the committee. So, so that showed, at least as far as the town hall was concerned, the 1,066,000 for the last.
The low bidder was
Low.
$1,066,000 and I issued a letter to accept that bid.
Oh,
We
okay.
did the reference checks. The general contractor comes very highly recommended. He just finished, he did the Sandwich Library and the Dennis COA,
Hmm.
came with great recommendations. So we issued the letter. Shane is working on the contract documents now.
Mhm.
They're anxious to get started. They want to start the masonry repointing this fall before it starts
The
to
cold- the weather,
freeze.
yeah.
Yeah, so.
So
'Cause-
the other question on that, and you and I were in touch on that too, and I think Peter was also on the capital projects committee, since it is over $1 million, but it's not a bond issue.
Yeah.
And I was looking at the charge for the capital projects committee, it would seem to me that it wouldn't fall under that, even though it's over 1 million, but because it's not a bonded project.
Right, so I think that this is, I look at the capital projects committees, I mean, when we had 4 or 5 of them, it was different because each one was different.
A separate,
So this is a little bit different starting over. I would like it to be kind of like we are. I mean, I would like it to be where we are talking about the projects and we don't get too in the weeds in terms of the invoices for payment, but we stay above the fray so that especially like as we go through wastewater, there will be lots of decisions to be made in wastewater and design decisions. And I want this team to become a team that consults with Rich and I on capital projects so that everybody feels free to, you know, suggest things and hear back from the consultants or whatever, what we're doing or not doing and answers and ask questions. So I will bring every capital project to you. I think it's like, for instance, we have a lot of stormwater projects right now. We have 5 or 6 that are funded by the USDA. None of them would qualify, but they're part of wastewater. So we'll probably discuss them at some point when we're going along because everything's connected. So definitely we'll talk about town hall. It should be kind of a much faster project than some of the ones. And I guess I think it's worthwhile to have the consultants come in for water and just talk about what's been done with water, where we are and what's left to go. And that's what I was going to try and do at our first capital projects meeting is just talk about what do you want the pace to be? Should we do one project at a time, or maybe one major one like water, one major one like wastewater, and then have all the minor ones on another
like
agenda.
Rock Harbor.
Yeah, Rock Harbor Dredge and things like that. So, because we always have a lot going on and it's not always in the threshold of, you know, capital but it's all capital. It's in our capital plan. We have the money for it and it's connected to something. So I think we should talk about it. But that's my view of it.
But bottom line, the charter doesn't require
No,
projects that aren't bonded to go, to
right,
be reviewed by the capital project committee, but it doesn't say that you can't.
right.
Right?
Yeah. So I think it's just a practical matter. It's a capital project. It's a
Yeah, makes
significant one, you know, the more heads, the better.
Hello,
Oh,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
How long is the town hall renovation expected to take?
Months, not like 4 to 6
Is that
months.
in the spring
Yeah,
or
it should be done in the spring unless I think we're too late to get everything done before,
it might
you know,
take a
the
little
snow
cold weather?
flies.
Yeah,
Because a lot of it's outside.
okay, so it's
Mostly
that's good.
exterior.
except for Tina's windows, I think.
Tina's one.
The town accountant side panel windows are getting new storms. Like, because they don't have storms at all. So they're antique windows. We're just
Oh,
putting
okay,
the
okay.
storm.
And the roof's already been done, so otherwise it's just
We have 2 little roofs to do.
2 little roofs.
Yeah.
The coop, fixing up the cupola.
Cupola.
Well, that's going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah. It's
Last
dangerous.
time they did it, they
Mm.
took it off with a crane.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
had to go up there with the,
And then there must be a lot of deterioration in the bricks.
yes. And so it's, you know, and they have to do all kinds of tests because there's some specification with older bricks that the grout has to be softer if they're older. I can't remember,
Oh,
but
yeah.
we spent a lot of time talking about it. So we have to do a lot of testing on that. There's some concrete work. So, you know, again, weather dependent and
So you
test
had a
dependent.
consultant that checked over the building and kind of came up with what had to be done.
Yes.
And that's what went out to bid.
And the capital projects committee, I mean, I'll bring Antonia in if you want to meet with Antonia and John at some point because they'll walk you through some stuff.
They were the ones that
Yeah.
did the analysis.
So the original, the last project that came into CPA was approved for 680.
Yeah.
And there's some money left from the earlier time that back when.
221,
It's
618.
Little bit, because the original amount was 300, so it's less
Yeah.
than that. So there's going to be some additional monies needed.
165,000. And because of the way Rich has been doing capital planning, we have building money set aside for maintenance and repairs for certain buildings. So we're going to take it out of the town hall account. And then if we have to replenish that after town meeting with free cash, we can do that.
So there's enough. I didn't look at the
Yeah.
capital figures.
But you want to go back to CPA.
No,
No. I don't know, you want to talk about your some things? I have a couple of other things on the list, but I'll let you
okay.
talk about
The-
whatever you'd like to talk about.
The community fund legislation is in the joint committee on municipalities and regional government, and they do not have any hearings scheduled. I just checked today.
No
So-
hearing scheduled,
So I don't know what they're doing or where they're doing it,
but they're not hearing.
but they're not hearing anything right now. But they
Yeah,
did,
Steve, right, it's, a month before the end of the session.
right. So they had a public hearing on it in June, May or June, and then they broke for the summer. And hopefully,
But if it doesn't pass this session, then they have to get reintroduced.
no, not until I think we can go over the winter into the winter session, but you can't go from the winter session to the summer session. I think that's the rule, but I'll check with Sarah. I'll ask her to have her aide find out
Okay.
what's happening.
Are there
Yeah.
other towns?
Sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and I just push for that as letters and people and the select board will be considering the residential tax exemption again early in
January.
2024. This is something that is targeted, would be so much more helpful, in my opinion, than an untargeted, change in implementing a residential tax exemption is,
We'd
the
still have to
community-
fund it though somehow, so.
Right, right.
The cost of implementing residential, well, I'm sure we'll get this in January, but somewhere between $50,000 and $75,000.
Annually, yeah.
If you're gonna incur that cost to implement something, why not implement it and use that money also?
To put into something that's targeted to people who
Need it.
really need it. So, yeah.
What do our reps say? Senator Sears? Is,
Oh, I haven't checked. That's what I'm saying. I checked
Yeah.
on the.
Well, they sponsored it, they both
they both co-sponsored the,
put it in.
Yeah.
But it went through the committee's last session. It just never got acted on in the general session.
And they didn't ask any questions. It's not like our other one, the charter. I mean, oh my God, we were answering questions and 4 months would go by, then they'd send us a whole nother list of questions, then 4 months would go by, then, it's not like that, so. I'll find out what we have to do to move it along. What's the water pressure one, Mary?
The word pressure shouldn't be in there. It's about the thing that we were talking about earlier. It's
Oh, the
about
pump. Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
pump issue because of
Yeah.
neighbors on where I live and
So the most important thing to remember, if anyone gets the brown water, which Mary and I have had several times, is not to use bleach. Do not do laundry on that day. Do not have the brown water mix with any bleach because that will set the brown stain onto anything that has bleach attached to it. It's like hermetically sealed after that, so.
how bad is it for drinking? Because one of my neighbors said that she has had some stomach issues because of.
It's
Yeah.
fine for drinking.
Mm.
It's fine for drinking. It just has more manganese. It's like taking a multivitamin, but it doesn't look good.
No, no.
So I'm a little confused. So the manganese clogged the pump.
There's what very quickly he said to me, I did not talk to him in detail, is that it over time, it wears down the pump. So over the past 7 years, having to deal with the manganese or the iron.
And then the pump went down, so
Jammed.
then you had low pressure. And the low pressure caused the brown? Or the manganese?
No, we had to switch from the well that's functional to the well that has manganese. So we had to switch.
The
So
one
we
well,
don't normally use the one with the manganese?
No, We keep it,
kind of a.
it's our
reserve.
backup reserve. Well, because we know we have an issue with it. So we're just going to have to tackle that issue.
I was gonna say, how does that get fixed?
We have to screen for this, but it's the reverse of what, remember on the wastewater presentation, the water's traveling through things. It's the reverse of that. So it comes up and then it has to reverse travel through some, not a container. It's like several sequences of,
You think we'll have to filter for that at some point?
yes,
The manganese?
yeah, unless, we want to tolerate brown water every 3 or 4 months. It's intermittent, it's not every time.
Still confused. So I thought the brown water came from the backup well, though.
It did. I'm sorry. So
The manganese, because manganese, I think, is colorless. I used to have manganese.
then maybe
Manganese-
it's iron.
Iron, I think it's iron.
It's brown.
The iron's brown, yeah.
Yeah.
But the manganese it attaches to stuff. So you
So
can filter for it, but they're telling you we're probably gonna have to filter for it.
I think they're saying in the Nauset well, they're going to have to filter. The other one, we can just, carry on.
So I'm still a little confused, but.
And then we have a third well coming
Sorry?
online.
But it doesn't make you sick.
Yeah.
Doesn't make you sick.
No, neither does the iron.
No.
It's just.
So the brown is caused by the manganese or your.
Iron.
It's called by.
I think it's probably
the
iron
That's
in
what I was-
the reserve well, the
Yeah,
backup
yeah,
well.
yeah.
Yeah, but you want to make sure people know that,
That it's not gonna kill them.
well, it's not gonna kill them, well. But there's this thing called hemochromatosis, people that have
Iron.
high iron.
Yeah.
And if that can be bad for those people.
And it literally wasn't even 12 hours. It was literally 12 hours. It came on like a Sunday midday and it was gone. We were back online Monday morning. So it's never a long period of time. It's very inconvenient because it happens very suddenly. All of a sudden your water goes from normal to,
Right, and the visual is the most
Yes.
disturbing thing.
Yeah,
It's that the level is not a,
I had brown ice cubes. It was very-
yeah.
A low level of the.
Yeah, I think
Oh, okay.
so, but yeah, you still need to.
But it interacts with, especially if you use bleach, it interacts and it turns more brown, more rusty,
Mm.
more vibrant.
That. Well, you don't want.
Should we be
septic-
putting
don't put
something
bleach down
out
your
for
septic
people?
systems.
Should we be saying something? It's not something that we're happy about, but I'm just saying. that-
I mean, I can, but it's only targeted to, it's not everybody. It's only, maybe we could have done, if it wasn't a Sunday, we probably could have done a quick reverse 911,
Yeah.
a code red
Code
to
red.
that neighborhood.
I'm not sure how much.
Homes it affected. Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't ask him that, but
Because
it used to happen only during flushing. When they would flush, we would get it for a couple of hours.
Every town says
But
that.
this wasn't a flush
No, it was a well going down and starting up a new well.
new well, yeah. Okay. All righty. So that was on there because of
Okay.
that issue. I'll let you continue.
I don't have anything else unless you,
Wastewater presentation,
Sorry.
the wastewater presentation.
Yeah, that was at the select board meeting.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any? I notified everybody on the committee that it was held and a couple of us attended. I guess, we talked about it briefly earlier that when we were talking about the financial policies, that the cost that's in there is much higher than the 90 million that we were anticipating, and what's in there is really on 2023 values.
you know what, I
I
have
think
no
it's-
confidence in that number. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't attach anything to it right now, other than this is going to be very, very expensive. Okay, because it's really, we'll go out to bid for this project if we're lucky 18 months from now or more. And they have a 30% contingency on that number, which is
30 million. continue.
crazy. So I think we just have to, because we've been dealing with 130 million as the number for a long time, 130 to 140 million. So
But it slipped out a year.
What did you say,
Yes.
Tom?
It's gone to the right 1 year.
Hmm.
Because I think before you were talking about 26,
Yes.
right? Now it's in 27.
And we really can't do it. And I mean, it's not something we want to rush and we really, we
yeah.
just
Oh.
can't design it in that less than that amount of time. So,
Got enough projects going on.
exactly.
Mhm.
And Rich wants more time to get rid of like, elementary school debt and more debt. We can get rid of some debt.
Smooth out that curve. Be nice.
Okay, I have two things that I wanted to bring up, and they're a comment and a question, I guess. One thing that I thought was of interest to me, I see that Wellfleet made a conditional offer of employment for the position of Assistant Town Administrator to Silvio Genao.
Janelle,
Oh, I'm sorry, I was always pronounced it Janea. And I thought that was interesting. He hasn't been, he was here, director of the DPW, and then he left for Plymouth with HR, and now he's up Wellfleet as Assistant Town Administrator.
and we wish him well.
Yeah. So
We
anyway.
hope he's successful in Wellfleet. Rich is going to help him out.
So actually, that's my other question. The memorandum, I have the memorandum of agreement between us and Wellfleet regarding Rich and I see that we were anticipating the 350 hours and the rate of $150 per hour. And I'm just wondering, obviously, we're paying Rich his normal salary. How, if 350 hours, if you figure a 35-hour a week, that's about 10 weeks of work. And I'm just wondering how he's going to fit in all that work
He's already done it though.
over and over.
I mean, I'll let him talk. I won't.
No, I mean, how is he doing it over and above what he normally does for us, and are you using you say that you might need support from additional town employees?
You know, I'm supposed to work 7 hours a day at this 24, so.
He doesn't sleep that
This sleep
much.
thing is overrated.
Weekends
Thing is overrated.
weekends are for the birds.
No, it's a lot of effort, but if we're gonna ever make any headway and get some cooperation and sharing services, this is what's gotta be done to show that it can be done, or to at least introduce yourself to other people and say, hey, that worked out pretty well. What can we do further to get the, so it's a risk, it's a burden on me. It's not easy. I have to juggle lots of things. But that's what we're doing to try to get some movement on,
Mhm.
improving
are you going to be-
delivery of services on the Outer Cape.
So
It is
are
what
you-
it is.
Are you going to be needing some other, are other employees going to be needing to take on work that you might have been
No.
doing? Or taking on some of the work that you're doing for Wellfleet, or,
No,
I admire your,
I'm proficient.
I guess so.
And if something has to give, then I'll tell Wellfleet to lower their expectations. I have no problem telling them that.
Mhm, okay,
I'm already late and, according to the charter, I should have had a capital plan for them a month ago.
oh, for them, you're saying?
Which was, probably wasn't a good expectation to start with. So, now, as a matter of fact, I have to go to their finance committee in about 40 minutes. They're meeting at 7 o'clock.
Unbelievable.
Hopefully it lasts less than 2 hours. It's just is what it is. If we want to make a change, this is how, I'm pushing, I'm being pushy, I guess.
As I've said before, and you and I have had this conversation, I am interested in the regionalization aspect of, especially the Outer Cape here. But I'm just trying to figure out how it's going to be, how you're fitting it in and how it's affecting other employees in town. And is the 150 going to you for your extra time, or how is, when you say blended rate, I don't know what that meant.
No, if we, at the moment, no one else is doing anything, but if they were, we're not nickel and diming, we're not saying someone's X amount of dollars and somebody else is on different amounts. Whatever effort we put in, we're getting reimbursed at $150 an hour.
No matter what
East
level of
Tim will get reimbursed whatever the cost of our staffing to do that work is for them.
Mhm.
And to the extent there's anything extra, then that would be the benefit to me, for example. So, if each team gets paid back, I don't know what the numbers are, but let's use round numbers. Their cost is $100 for me to do the work, they'll get reimbursed $100 and maybe I get 50. It's probably not quite that much, but.
So you're essentially, you're getting the 150 an hour, that's. And you,
No.
towns-
no, who's getting?
We're
the-
getting paid back for any of Rich's time that we pay for. And then that difference, if his salary is, I don't know, 92.50, the difference between 92.50 and 140, that will be a separate check to Rich at the end. Once all the money.
It's almost
is-
like police details.
It's overtime.
Yeah.
So, and if any other employee works, they will get the same deal, maybe,
Because I think I heard you say Hillary who used to be Department of Health here, he is here now, but was up there in Wellfleet before she came here. Is she also doing some work for them too, since she came from there?
Hillary has been doing a tremendous amount of work pro bono for them
Mm.
for many months.
Mm.
And we were considering an arrangement like this
Mhm.
with Hillary, but they have hired 2 new people. So she was done as of Oyster Fest weekend,
Mhm.
so.
So they've hired somebody to do the work that she was doing for them. Hopefully she was getting paid for doing what.
She was not getting paid.
Not
No
getting
one
paid.
was paying her.
Mm.
And that's between her and the town of Wellfleet. I wasn't involved in negotiating
Mm.
contract
The
for her. I think
relationship.
she did it because she
because
is
she
an amazing professional and she
came from
feels like she wanted to complete things and not leave them in the lurch,
Mm.
which is, why she's great at what she does, but. But
What's the time frame of the 350 hours for the next year?
Up to town meeting, probably,
Yeah.
you gotta put the budget together and help them
Okay.
craft their articles and make sure, same deal. I'm not gonna leave them high and dry. So
June 1st.
whatever it takes is what it takes.
And if they get a AAA bond rating back and we don't. Just kidding.
But see, we're not going to be able
No,
to
I-
share
yes.
services unless someone does something
know, I'm
extra.
just-
It's just not possible.
Right.
And they don't want anyone but Rich. Rich is the guy. Everyone wants Rich.
David's son.
Well. Make sure you take vacation when you're done.
Yeah,
We just gave him a vacation because he was getting really cranky.
yeah, that's right.
Well, we gotta stop keeping them here till.
Yeah,
Yep.
that would help.
But he
That's the
told me
best
all
one.
he did was drink wine, so.
Oh, well,
All right,
Okay.
moving along.
Okay. Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about under the
No.
town manager's report? And does anybody have any new business? And I just want to say that under normal circumstances, our next meeting would be November 22nd. That's the 4th Wednesday of next month, but that's the day before Thanksgiving. So I have moved it up for another week
Oh.
till November 29th at the same time at 4:00. I felt that made more sense and I've been in touch and with Rich and everybody as far as setting up the time, the meeting room. So we're all set for this room for the 29th at 4:00. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Emotion.